prior to Generation X and the boomers that own 65% of the houses that are out there right now, prior to them, everybody sold one way. Yeah. So now that there's multiple ways to sell, we still are in a learning curve of that. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of REISmartTalk here at REIPrintMail. I have a very special guest in the house today is Bobby Kough. My name is Scott Snofke. I'm a senior direct marketing coach here. Today we're going to discuss branding, basically how to build a team, how to build that inside of the brand, and how to utilize the brand to find more deals and generate more revenue. So in doing that, I want to welcome Bobby. Thanks for joining us today. Absolutely. Here in the office. And we are here in St. Louis. Bobby and Jimmy Vreeland have the I Buy STL brand here in St. Louis. So talk to me, how important is branding your business in a local market?
Yeah, I mean, that is the foundation of the business for us. When I joined the operation about 4 years ago, we came in and we kind of rebranded to iBuy. Jimmy had a different brand before that. We rebranded to iBuy. And the big thing with that is we wanted to be the good guys of real estate. Mm-hmm. So in that kind of branding, like where we started with that is, we were a ragtag group when we initially got started.
Running and gunning.
Yeah. So we were, didn't have much of a brand, didn't have much brand recognition. And then as we created the iBuy brand and we kind of shifted from what was to kind of the new. We really focused on, again, being the good guys of real estate. So operating with, just a high ethical foundation. And then, the brand kind of, it started to pick up and it organically grew from, word of mouth, stuff like that. Obviously we had to spend, marketing dollars to get there.
But inside of that, so as you're saying that, what I'm hearing is it also gave you guidance in your culture. So, not only branding logo, but you branded your team like this is how we're going to operate. This is how we're going to be ethically. This is what we're going to do for our customers. So it gave you almost an outline of how to run your business as far as through communications and what you guys represented.
Yeah. I mean, branding, the more you brand yourself, the more accountability there is to that brand, right? So, the people that were with us at the beginning, they're not with us anymore, right? We've had a massive culture shift that's been in line with that brand, right? So, that first step is really deciding what you want that culture to be, right? We talk about all the bad things that wholesalers do, but and that's usually because that operation or that individual doesn't have a great culture, right, within their organization. So we really started, our branding efforts and we're still in a position where we're going to do a lot more, right? There's still a lot.
Well, it's always going to be evolving. So as the the world changes, your culture is going to change to fit the world inside of your parameters and your ethics.
Yeah. So we started with the team. We were looking at the guys on the team, and it took a while to come up with those core values that really applied to the culture that we wanted.
Right.
We did a lot of research. We read a lot of books. One of the books that, we took a lot from was The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni.
Okay.
So we took some things from that book, some of the things that we see, we would analyze, new employees and we'd be like, hey, what characteristics, does this person display that makes them really good at what they do?
Right.
And then we would start seeing patterns. It's like, hey, the good people, they're problem solvers, right? So we're like, okay, problem solver is, one of our core values. So as we started to create that culture in the organization and we got the individuals in the organization to buy into that culture, that really allowed us to, audit that brand to make sure that, our website, our commercials, our mail pieces, do they align with the culture of the organization and what we're trying to accomplish?
So basically you went from what the business was when you joined it, sat down, created a new brand, but then utilized the brand to create the culture to grow the team.
Yeah.
So, you go and shop for your team members to grow your business to make sure that they fit these key points inside of your culture and that they represent the brand. And then from the brand, you guys are, generating inbound lead flow just from word of mouth now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when we're starting with that team, there was something from Simon Sinek that was really good. It's performance and trust. Right. It's like you can have the high performer that has low trust.
Right.
It's like what he says in that. It's like that's the guy nobody wants. That's like the office. I don't know if I can say a bad word on this, but
you can. It's a podcast.
That's the office asshole.
Right.
That's right. Like in his video, he says everybody's going to know who that is. You ask the team, they're going to know who that is. So what we look for, in individuals that match that culture, that match the brand, is those people that are in the medium to high trust. Right. So and that's the brand, right? Like seller facing. We want people to know that, hey, you come and work with us, we're going to put the relationship first. Right. Anything that we do, like we're not focused on, the making money. Mm-hmm. Like our goal is how can we bring value to our customers, and the money's going to follow. Right.
Yeah. It's always, if you do your job correctly, people will value that, and then that generates the revenue off of the value that you add to the situation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, as you've grown the brand here in St. Louis, and you've built your team, do you find it easier now that you guys have guidance through that culture to get and find these deals to work through, because it's just easier conversations? Or did you feel as you got started and you kind of had a little bit more of a laissez-faire or running and gunning approach, was it easier to find the deals that way, through structure or through just out there going after it?
Yeah, I mean the structure definitely makes everything better, right? One of the things about the brand that may be a misconception is like when you start to develop a brand, it's not that brand is going to generate like organic traffic right away, but what it's going to do is it's going to take the people that are in your funnel and it's going to make them easier to convert. Right. So that's what we've seen that like, hey, our whole entire process is built around how do we build trust with the seller. Right?
Yeah, and to add to that is, I think most people out there think of branding as logos.
Yeah.
But it's so much deeper than that. If you get into, the REIPrintMail brand or the iBuySTL brand, it's more about the culture and the product that is delivered. So you're organically getting yourself out there to say, okay, this is what we're about. Other people will back that up and say, yeah, we've used them, they're phenomenal. And then that growth naturally comes from that. But it also creates the core values inside, because you don't want to mess the brand up. Because once you mess the brand up, that's a very difficult thing to do, is go back and change.
Yeah. And as we were growing, we would experience that. Mm-hmm. We would get hit with a bad review. Right. And then it would be, red alerts throughout the office of like, guys, hey, what happened here? Right. Like we would have AARs on those and figure out, hey, how can we, number one, make sure that never happens again? Right. And what in our process, seller facing is messed up. Like what allowed this to happen? It's taken some time to develop into the brand that we are today, but doing those AARs and righting those wrongs has been huge.
Right. And, so as you've cultivated this brand here in St. Louis and you've grown it into, to blossom into what it is today, you're actually starting now to take that brand and that culture and move it into other markets. So you've built it, you've grown it, and then now you're almost spreading it around and bringing in, other markets to continue to grow, the business as a whole now, right?
Yeah. And the goal with all of that is, each company in our industry kind of has like what they're really good at, what they're experts at. The intention behind us, going out to, Little Rock, going out to Wichita, and hopefully expanding past that in the future, is that we want to provide like a white glove, service to sellers to be able to sell their house. Right. Because, we've talked about it. There's usually the two traditional options, and they think everything else is a scam. Right. So we're combating that, and my opinion is the way to do that is to provide a extreme amount of value on the front end and create that white glove experience based on trust. Yep.
Well, because you go back and look at it. I'm Generation X. I was born in 1975. What I grew up with was TVs and newspapers and things of trust in that nature. That some of those things have been exploited now, and then you get into how I was told to buy and sell property. It was like you used a realtor and you used a bank. The realtors always told you, I wouldn't go that way for sale by owner. You're not protected.
Yeah.
They always talk down to you. So, but as those real estate commissions and property values have gone up, that commission's gotten a lot bigger, which has created the wholesale market that's kind of in between of somebody that, maybe is elderly or physically disabled or cannot sell their property on the open market because they don't have the ability to fix it, or they don't have the time or the money to get somebody to come in and fix it.
Yeah.
So, it's created a whole sub-market, but, that prior to Generation X and the boomers that own 65% of the houses that are out there right now, prior to them, everybody sold one way. Yeah. So now that there's multiple ways to sell, we still are in a learning curve of that. So to have an ethical company come in and sit down and go, okay, these are our abilities, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we say we're going to do, is phenomenal. And then to do it under a brand with the core values is, going to just radicalize the market and be the trusted source in there. So, eventually you guys are shooting to be, your own, I wouldn't call it brokerage, but that's the word people use, is this is a trusted brokerage. As a real estate firm, you're going to be the trusted wholesaling firm or flipping firm, to grab those middle people that can't fix their property. Is that what, what kind of where you guys are seeing yourselves going? Or
Yeah. We're taking it day by day with the expansion, but no, I mean, the goal is to expand across the Midwest, down into the Southeast. And really to provide sellers with an alternate option that, is legitimate and is with somebody you can trust.
So in the, the 4 years that you've been here, you've been in real estate now for almost 8 years, kind of dabbling in it. What have you seen change just since the 4 years that you've come in that, could help some of our viewers to look, things to strive for, things to look for?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is the deteriorated trust with like the iBuyer, right? Like I think we've seen, we saw that big surge around, pre-COVID into COVID where, iBuyers were coming from, Phoenix or whatever big hub that they're in. And they were just, pouncing on everything that they can get their hands on. A lot of people got burnt. You had the Open Door lawsuit. There were a lot of different things in there that kind of happened. I think trust with those type of organizations has deteriorated.
Right.
Trust with like the local, like homegrown kind of organization. I think that's like at a high right now.
So as you're building trust in that, I know, you guys typically are, when it's in a local market, you're a little bit more belly to belly. You qualify the lead prior to through, your ISAs or, your sales agents. And then at that point, then you're physically going to the property to work with them so you can build that trust. We'll go in, sit down and have that eye to eye, belly to belly conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're doing, as we're expanding, because, one of the things that we've talked about is like, we don't want to lose that local, like trusting feel when we expand. We don't want to be, hey, St. Louis is the hub and we're offering on houses all over the place. Right. So we've created that in the other markets. Like the guys that are operating in that market are in those areas, from those areas.
Right. So you have boots on the ground in those areas to continue that culture, because oftentimes, it's why direct mail works so well to generate leads is, it's the last kind of trusted resource psychologically is, the last thing that most people trust that are Generation X and above is the newspaper. Yeah. We're seeing a lot less of that, but that was something physically in their hands. And that's what mail represents, is we often don't see scammers coming through the mailbox. Where we see them is through the phones, through the internet, through the TV. Yeah. So we're going through a trusted resource, but being able to have those boots on the ground and then go sit down with them is an added level of security. It's almost a security blanket because people just naturally don't trust anymore because they've been bombarded with scams. So yeah, that's a great way to, to have that boot on the ground and belly to belly. I like it. Hard to scale sometimes. Yeah. But, if you're doing it right, it fits your culture, then you're naturally going to grow because then you'll just bring in more people that fit your culture.
Yeah. And we've sat down and we've looked at what are all the ways that this can go wrong. At the end of the day, it's people. It's people that, don't align with the culture and the brand. Right. Like if we allow those people to kind of seep into the organization, that's how this can go wrong.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, culture is very difficult, and I know we go through it here at REIPrintMail. We sit down and talk about it regularly. Inside of your business, how often do you guys sit down and go over, with the heads of state or the whole team? Do you guys do it with the whole team and discuss, hey, this is what we're seeing. What do you guys want to see? Let's grow it. Let's grow this brand together. Do you let everybody in on that, or do you only do that with the heads of state?
Yeah, I mean, we have different levels, right? The team is bought in to the core values and like the culture of the organization before they even sign an offer letter. Right. Like we almost use that, I don't want to say a scare tactic, but we almost use that, we're very transparent when we sit down and somebody that's applying for the job, it's like, dude, like, here's what it is. Like, it's not a soft line in the sand that can be, squiggled out and placed somewhere else.
Right. These are what expectations are.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we put them through testing. Like as we're building the team, we've gotten more sophisticated.
Right.
But we put them through testing to where we can see little red flags if there are any. We interview them now with other leadership members on other teams just to get like a complete unbiased, opinion. And we make sure to the best of our ability that at the end of the day, that line in the sand is they're committed to it and, they come on board. And then that conversation is really easy.
Right.
What if there is a culture violation, it's like, hey, you committed to this.
Right.
I made sure you had all of the information to make that commitment and fulfill on it.
Yeah. Very little gray area.
Yeah. And you didn't. Right. And then we're also, constantly auditing that across the team. Like we recently just did that Simon Sinek exercise of
the power of why, or what is your why?
Yeah, and we went through and we were like, hey, rate your team members on performance and trust, and then the folks that are, got maybe one or two low trusts, like those are folks that we're gonna work with,
right? And
they're gonna know that, right? And we're gonna tactfully try to push them in a place to either fix that, or if they don't, then they're not a culture fit.
Yeah. Right. Because you can't have, in a dozen eggs, you have one bad egg in there, it's eventually going to take over the rest of the carton. And, you just can't let that proceed, through your culture, because it'll wreck it really quickly. And then you're in a rebuilding process, and then, that's loss of revenue, all that. So you have to maintain it just like a garden. You have to constantly cultivate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we tell the team, I've coined myself as like, we're all guard dogs of the culture.
Right.
I might be the most aggressive guard dog, in the pack, but everybody needs to be a guard dog. Cause you allow that low trust individual to remain on the team. It's just going to drain energy from the rest of the team members. So your high functioning guys that you want to keep, they're going to see, behavior from this low trusting individual being allowed, being permitted.
Right.
And it's going to negatively impact them.
Yeah. We've seen it here in the office of what we were, 7-8 years ago to growing into what REIPrintMail is now is a big culture shift of, once, Ryan Dixon, our VP took over, he was a direct marketing coach, and he was like, hey, this is how we're going to do things. This is how we're going to do things every day. And if we're outside of that, customers come first and then you come second. Yeah. And so we build that into the team atmosphere. We sit down and we discuss it all the time. And then, it's all about, the heads of state holding accountability, but then also the people on the low end of coming up and saying, hey, you guys are accountable too. So it's, I know Greg Groeschel is a great podcast to follow in leadership, because he teaches to lead from the position that you're at. Yeah. So everybody has the power to lead. It's just in the position you are. You're leading up and you're leading down. And so you grow that team, that team building, and the better you have that, the more your brand is going to grow from that, and the better you are going to be in your market. So
yeah. And one of the interesting things about culture that we had to learn, and I heard this at a presentation I was at. I can't remember exactly who it was.
Yeah, we go to so many of them.
Yeah, we go to a lot of them. But it was like, hey, people have a misconception of what culture is. Mm. Right? Like they say like, hey, the guy he was like, hey, if you put a bunch of losers in a room, like they might get along. And that's a little harsh, right? But if you put a bunch of low performers in a room, they might get along. And like a lot of the world looks at like that, like, oh, they have a good culture. They get along. They're friends.
Well, they're like-minded individuals.
Yeah. And it's like, culture, that's not what culture is. Culture is accountability.
Right.
right? So it's like, we measure it. We look at the functional level of the team based on like how big of commitments they make and how often they fulfill on those commitments. And like that's what creates a functioning team and creates that culture. If you're committing to really low level things and you're only fulfilling like 50%.
Well, when you look at it, there's good culture and there's bad culture.
Yeah.
There's motivated culture, there's unmotivated culture. So every culture is, a pretty broad brush to paint on it, but the version of culture that you guys have outlined, and then you're holding to that standard and say, hey, this is the minimum. If you're not above the minimum, then you're not with us.
Yeah.
Because we're a team that's going that way, and if you want to go with us, we're all going to go that way together and be successful as a group.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a plus or a minus. When we do our evaluations, it's not a plus minus, it's not a neutral. It's either you're there or you're not.
Right. I actually love those tests because when I was tested when I came here for sales on that, and I actually came back with in the test with low confidence. And the very first conversation when I was introduced to the team here at REIPrintMail, we were having our year-end meeting. So the whole company was there. We're going over P&L and all of that. And then Jeff, our owner, introduced me and said, hey, here's our next $1 million salesman, and stuck me in stage right in front. So not only did he see the test, but then he was like, well, we'll see. He came highly recommended. And then he put me out there on stage in front of everybody to see what my level of confidence was.
Yeah.
At the end of it, I just kind of looked up and went, well, that was weird. And I wasn't expecting that, but I just stepped up to it. And then I caught what happened afterwards. So there's testing, and then there's continual testing.
Yeah.
Because people change.
Yeah. Yeah. And when we go through those exercises, and let's say we have a team member that has some low trust scores from the other team, we don't really care, where they've been. We care about where they're going. Right. Like we have that like growth mindset with everything. It's like, hey, this was the data. This is what you've done in the past. Let's work together to fix that and get you to a position where, the lowest rating you get is a medium trust. Right. So we're constantly working to develop the team. None of those indicators are like, there are with core values and stuff, there are clear cut like, hey, you're gone.
Right.
But, most of the audits and the testing that we do, with our steady state operation, it's more so giving them an opportunity to grow, to get better.
Yeah, to say, hey, these are our weaknesses, these are our growth points, and this is what how we found success in the past and how we're going to find success in the future.
Absolutely.
Well, with that being said, man, I loved having this on because this is going to be a great team building conversation for people to watch and to understand how to bring a brand in, how to build the culture, and then how to grow their team to find success.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you having this on. If you guys like this today, be sure to like and follow REISmartTalk, REIPrintMail on YouTube, wherever you can find us. We're going to be bringing as much content like this as we can. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you on the next conversation. Talk to you later. Thanks, Bobby.
Yes, sir.